Okay. Well, welcome. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight on August, for our August 22nd Historic District Board of Review meeting. Would you like to take a roll call, Brooke?
Yes. Josh Wilbur. Caroline Rogers.
Here.
Tom Stark.
Here.
Owen McCall.
Here.
Mike Pittman.
Here.
And Sandy Palmer.
Here.
Did everybody have a chance to take a look at last month's meeting minutes?
Yes.
Any changes, additions, deletions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second?
Oh, I'll second. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay,
Caroline Rogers.
go ahead.
Yeah, we need to roll call real quick.
Yep,
Caroline Rogers. Approve.
Yes.
Thomas Stark.
approve.
Owen McCall.
Approve.
Mike Pittman.
Approve.
And Sandy Palmer.
Approve.
A little bit about tonight's meeting. We're going to ask each of you as your application comes up for you to come up to the podium. Make sure your microphone is on. I believe it's on right now. State your name and your address. Brooke will then go through your application and make sure that we all clearly understand what you're applying for. At that point, if you have anything that you would like to add in addition to the application or what's been said, you can feel free to do so. After it's presented, then the board members will ask questions, maybe clarifications on the application, and then we'll ask if there are any questions or any comments from the public as well. After that's all said and done, we will go through our facts of finding based on our guidelines, and then we will ask for a motion from somebody on the board. We'll have a second vote for that, and then we will actually vote for the motion that was made. With that said, let's go ahead and get started with our applications. I believe we have Scott Exline up first tonight. No.
I do not see him. I'll try to get a hold of him.
Okay.
If we can recall that one.
Do you want to just put it on to, I mean, this is the second month, so do you want to put it on to next month's agenda, or?
Let's put it at the end of the applications, if you don't mind, and we'll see if he can make it here.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we'll figure it out at the end.
Yep. The next application is Stephen and Elizabeth Thomas.
Good evening.
Could you state your name and your address?
Stephen L. Thomas, 208 East 2nd Street.
Thanks, Steve.
If you don't mind, I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay.
Just a second.
Hold on, Steve.
Were you able to? Yeah. Okay. Keeps telling me low battery, but it's plugged in. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. So this application by Stephen and Elizabeth Thomas is for 208 East 2nd Street. This building is a circa 1840 Italianate contributing zone central business district. The COA request is to replace windows of varying materials that are existing currently in the structure with 6/6 fiberglass windows of the same size. You can see currently the front facade of the building. These are the windows that are currently in the building installed now. So you can see on the front north-facing west side on the second floor, we have 1/1 circa 1972 windows. The front north-facing center second floor, same circa 1972 windows. Also on the north-facing east side, same. Now on the front north-facing center third floor, they are wood windows, 6/6. These windows all appear to be in advanced state of deterioration. You can see there's also some spots where some of the windows are missing. And these are more pictures pictures of the conditions of other windows in the structure. This is part of the information pamphlet about the new proposed fiberglass windows. They are the infinity windows, so they're the ones on the right that is highlighted. These windows have been previously used in historical landmark projects. They do have a more narrow profiling and traditional wood window detailing. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Steve, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the application?
No, the windows you see are pretty much what we inherited 27 and a half years ago. And that's a little more like what we want to look like it. The way things are at the back of the building, you barely get a lift up there, like what's in front of the hotel over here. It's impossible to get a ladder to the back. This one you can, but I'm sort of not allowed to do that anymore. And there's not too many people around that are answering the phone about doing
Yeah.
it. And so we're trying to, going from the 2/2s back to at least as close as we can to something historic look. And that's what we're doing.
And did I understand that the other windows that you'd be replacing, I believe on the western side or, and the south, those would be either 2/2 or 1/1? Are they all, what were you planning for the rest of the windows?
If you can go back to the pictures you saw of the west facing, if it's possible. On those, it was felt that since those windows aren't even replacement of periods. I mean, they bricked those in and turned those into small. So I was planning on 2/2 on those and 6/6s on the front.
Okay. Anything else?
Not that I can add, but thank you very much for having us here.
Oh, yeah. Sandy, would you like to start us off with some questions? If you have any?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anybody else on the board?
I do.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, Steve, since this is Italianate, I'm curious why, or do you want to go with 6/6s since like 2/2 would be like more of that vintage? And you're putting 2/2, you say, on that side.
Right.
So why not just make them all 2/2?
Why not make them all over 2? Because the fronts and the third on the back are the size as built.
I'm not talking about the size, I'm talking about how many window panes, how they're divided up, 6/6
Do you
panes.
think we should have 6/6 facing west?
No, I think 6/6 would be for a much older building. 2/2 or maybe 3/3 would be if that building is Italianate, that's what that would have had in it at that time. So I'm just curious, since you are doing 2/2, you just said on one side, why not just make them all 2/2, and then that would be appropriate for the period.
For 1840? For
I'm sorry?
1840 period?
Italianate was probably later 1800. 1840 would have been federal, but this says it's Italianate, so I'm thinking Italianate.
Well, I didn't say it was Italianate.
Well, okay.
Somebody else did, but it was, we've had it dated, constructed. The construction probably began around 1848 and was finished sometime before the tax rolls show up from the 1851 fire or whatever. The tax roll shows up in either 1852 or 1853. So I go by what the experts have told me on that. So if there's a feeling about that, I'm open to entertaining it. It's just the other buildings around town, the older ones that I can see, look like they had 6/6. So that's kind of how we
So
looked at it.
Brooke, you had it down as Italianate. Is that from the,
That is what it's listed as on the survey.
yeah,
But if that dating of 1850s, then 6/6 would be an appropriate style choice on the pane configuration for that. Italianate, obviously a more appropriate style would be the 2/2. But we're talking 1880s at that
Right.
time, so,
So I mean, just looking at the front of it, it's so simple looking. I wouldn't have necessarily said Italianate, but of course it's a business, it's not a residence, so.
correct. And I do agree with you on that. I do struggle to identify it as Italianate myself, but I do.
That's
you
what
know,
was in the survey,
right,
so that's what you
that was
put
the-
down.
Yeah, I
Right.
have to go by the survey that has
Right,
been officially
right.
adopted.
Okay,
So.
okay, that's my only question, thanks.
You know, the 6/6 more expensive than 2/2. And so, I mean, we viewed it as what we thought was the right way to approach it. So we'll, if it's not on the right track, we're happy to listen.
You based it because the third floor front was 6/6. Although
That's what we
You don't know what
understand.
age that window is, it's a wooden window in there, right?
In what those are up there, or excuse me, two nailed-in uppers against one another, up against the jamb and trim, so.
So they may have been,
And they're on their way out.
Yeah, I think there probably are very few 6/6s that are original. That would be so old, you know, to think that a window has survived since 1850. I bet we have
Yeah.
tiny number of those, so we have to just kind of go by like
We
what
do
you've
have,
done.
we
And
do have some in the 200 block of West Second Street, just a couple doors west, and they're all 2/2. And there's two twin buildings with a shared wall. And if you look at them, they're being restored, there's one of the buildings is being restored into a single-family home in the middle of the block. And all of those windows are being restored, and they are 2/2, just for reference, and it's 1840s, 1850s architecture, Italianate. So,
Well, if 2/2 is better, we're happy to entertain that and do that.
May I make a comment? Thank you. I agree that the windows needed replacing. I came by and took a careful look at them, and there's about 12 windows you're looking at? Am I right or wrong?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
if we get to do everything, which is not, you know, I mean,
Okay. Well, as to the conformance, the materials were not in question so much. Therefore, I thought the issue of the 2/2 or the 1/1, rather than the 6/6 was a bit weak, only because it says using the term most likely does not make it true. And because it may have been a 6/6 depending on that year. And if you'll notice, to the right, to the left of you, to the west of you, Madtown Liquors, their windows are 6/6 on the front there. And because your top window is a 6/6, I like it a whole lot better to my eye than the 1/1 or the 2/2s. So I think you should put it in the 6/6, but that's entirely up to you, I'm sure.
do we know if Madtown Liquor windows, are they original, or do you have any thoughts on that? Or replacements?
To be quite honest with you, I've not looked at them closely enough to
Yeah.
offer an opinion on that, so I don't want to guess.
Yeah. So,
Steve,
what,
we-
go ahead, Mike.
We've got the original windows, on the upper floors of our house there at 420 Elm. It was built in 1830. Our house was built in 1830 there at 420. And the ones up above I think they're 9/6, which is kind of a weird combination. But the ones on the first floor, I believe were replaced, and they are 6/6, and it was about 1850. So I think based on this discussion, my attitude is you can do whatever you want to do. You can do 2/2 or 6/6. I mean, it's really what I hate to throw that at you, but I mean, it's whatever pleases you guys. I think, I don't know how the board feels. But my attitude is if there's a discussion, that any variability there, because I think you can go around town and see, examples of houses where you've got 2/2s and also 6/6s, so, for that time period. But to me, appreciate what you're doing, trying to get those windows up. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
you were getting ready to say
Oh,
something.
I was going to say, was there any other comments then from the
I just
board?
want to make one, I wanted to remind the board that we should not be saying what we think looks nice. It's not about our taste. If we want to say, you know, this is more appropriate for this time period or not, that's fine. But when it comes to taste, it's the owner. If you can't tell which one it is, then the owner gets to pick. We should not ever say, oh, it sure would look nice. I would love it if you would do so-and-so. That's not in the guidelines, okay? We're going by the guidelines, not
Sure.
our personal taste. Okay.
Any other comments? Any comments, questions from the public? Okay, with that said, Owen, would you like to start us off with findings of fact?
Okay, original windows should be preserved in their original size. Oh, wait, this is the wrong one. This is residential. We need to do commercial.
I chose
Well-
residential because the windows being replaced are on the second and third floors, which are residential space.
Oh,
So,
okay,
but
okay.
I can pull up commercial guidelines if you'd prefer.
Well, whatever, I mean, you're the pro. You tell me which one we should use.
They're essentially the same guidelines.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, so original windows should be preserved in their original size, location, and design, but these are either not original, very few of them are original, probably none, but the one that might be is so deteriorated, they all have to be replaced, okay? Number two, windows should not be added on the primary facade, we're not doing that. Number three, windows should be repaired rather than replaced, but all these seem to be, we don't know if it's 80% deteriorated, but certainly, they're either not historic or the one that may be historic is quite deteriorated or most of it missing. Okay, number four, original metal windows should be preserved. Well, it doesn't apply. Snap-on muntins, he's not asking for snap-on muntins, so number five is satisfied. Are you going to, you're just using a double pane so that we're not talking about screens or storms, so number six doesn't apply. And security bars, no security bars, all right? So that number seven doesn't apply. Therefore, it appears to me that Steve's proposal is consistent with the guidelines.
Can I have a motion?
You need to go through
Yeah, we gotta go.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I agree with Owen.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
I agree with Owen.
Sandy?
I agree with Owens.
And I also agree with Owen, and I think the windows that you've chosen are actually, you know, beautiful, and they're gonna be very durable over a long period of time.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll ask for a motion.
I'll give you. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review approve approve a certificate of appropriateness to Steve and Elizabeth Thomas to replace the windows of various materials with 6/6 fiberglass windows of the same size at 208 East Second Street.
I'd like to add or 2/2, depending on his preference.
Okay.
Can we add that?
If she,
Can we
Can
add
you
that?
add-
If we wanted to change the last line, that with windows of various materials with windows of the same size at the 208 East Second Street and leave out. whether
Do
it's
6/6 or 2/2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Carolyn Rogers,
I agree.
Mike Pittman,
I agree.
Sandy Palmer,
Agreed.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Thomas Stark.
Approve. So with that, you'll be getting your COA to go ahead and move ahead with your project. Just make sure that you've got all your appropriate permits in place before you begin the work.
All right.
Thanks, Steve, and thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Steve.
Our next applicant is Michael O'Day. And I hope I pronounced that correctly, did I? Okay,
Thank you. Michael O'Day, 803 Fillmore Alley.
great.
This home is a circa 1970 non-contributing modern movement. ranch style. It is zoned Historic District Residential. The COA request is to rearrange 8 existing windows on the south elevation, adding 2 new windows. Adjust deck/rail to new window orientation. Install board and batten siding, composite siding, over existing brick veneer in the vicinity of the windows. You can see a photo of the home on your left here. This will be the rear of the home where the proposed project will be taking place. Another picture of the home from 2017. Picture of the home from circa 1979.
Change that.
Growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
These are drawings of the existing window configuration. This drawing shows the new Quaker casement windows that are proposed to be added, along with the board and batten and the railing. This information sheet is from Virginia Savage's book, and, it just talks about, or shows examples of how modern movement ranch-style homes typically did have various types of wall cladding, including the board and batten, as well as masonry components. Here, the same thing on window configuration. There's a different, wide variety of stylings that went into these homes of this era. And that is all I have.
Great. Thanks, Brooke. Michael, do you have anything else you'd like to add to the?
No, the only thing I'd like to is to clarify that I'm using all the windows that are there. I'm gonna reuse all of them. I'm only gonna add 2 new Quaker windows. The 6 that are in the bow window now, I'm gonna pull those apart and reinstall those.
Cool.
And then the 2 that are on the left, there's 4 in that picture there, but the previous, I'm gonna pull those out and I'm gonna add 2 Quaker windows next to them to make 4. That's a bedroom that we're there now.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
Can you tell me what is the material that those Quaker windows are made out of?
Clad aluminum.
Thank you.
Existing ones are clad Anderson. I'm not sure the year, I'm thinking 1995 or something.
Anderson aluminum?
No, I think what did they used to call it? It's like a plastic cladding.
But under the cladding, what, is it aluminum? Is
Oh, I'm
it
sorry,
wood?
it's a wood window with cladding,
Aluminum
yes.
clad.
Aluminum clad wood?
Yes,
And that's what the Quaker is?
correct.
Oh,
yes.
great, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
Seems
Do we have any comments or questions from the public? Okay, with that said, Mike, would you like to start us out?
Sure.
Findings of fact?
Findings of fact. Seems like we just did windows. Basically, you're to be complimented for reusing what you got. That's a great thing to do.
I'm sorry, oh, thank you.
Complimented for reusing what you have there. Doesn't sound like there's any repair gonna be done. Sounds like they're in good shape. Porch, you're doing columns, so we can skip that one. Synthetic or substitute materials, you are using aluminum clad wood, windows, which is a acceptable alternative. It's on the back of the house. There's no synthetic siding. Excuse me, you are using siding over the
Over the brick,
over
yeah,
the
some of the
brick.
bricks kind of come down, yeah.
over the brick, so.
Board and batten, I'm gonna be using hardy.
Okay, hardy board, that's good, okay. So that's acceptable. Next one. And windows should not be added on the primary facade. Well, we can debate whether that facing the
That's
reverse.
debatable.
But you know what? I think it's a great addition. I would want to see as much of that reverse possible myself,
Okay,
so I have no issue with that. So basically, I think you made all the findings of fact.
Great. Carol Ann?
I concur.
Sandy?
I concur.
I agree for the same reasons.
And I also agree for the same reasons, and I want to underscore what Mike said. Thank you for reusing the materials that you already have that are obviously still in good shape.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
nice
we'll
to, for any window when we see that happen. Yeah. Okay, with that said, Let's ask for a motion then.
I would make a motion, based on the proceedings finding of fact, I find that Michael O'Day at 803 Fillmore Street be given a certificate of appropriateness for the project as submitted.
Caroline?
I agree. I concur.
I'm sorry?
We need a second.
Yeah,
I'll second it.
yeah, I thought she did second. Did you not?
I did not.
Okay. I need a second.
I would second it.
Tom Stark,
I approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carolyn Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
Okay, with that, you'll get your COA in the mail, and like I've said to everybody else tonight, make sure you have all your work permits in place before you begin your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Linda Malloy.
Actually, Kevin Malloy,
Okay, I'm sorry, Kevin. Let me add you to my worksheet here. Great. Can you state your name and your address?
Kevin and Linda Malloy, 816 West Second Street.
Great, thank you. Brooke?
All right, this home is a circa 1870 contributing. It is an Italianate zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to add a roof over the existing rear patio. You can see a photograph of the front of the home here. We have a few photographs of the rear of the home where the proposed patio will be located. This is an architectural drawing of the side view showing the proposed porch addition, or the porch roof addition, I apologize. And another view from the side, or from the front, excuse me, or the rear, sorry. I will get that right here in a second.
It's the rear.
Yep. And then this would be the site plan. That is
Is
all
that
I
it?
have.
Okay. So, Kevin and Linda, do you guys have anything else that you'd like to add to this application?
No, I think Brooke showed it very well.
Okay. You've done a lot of work on that property, and it's really a
Thank you.
masterpiece.
Thank you.
We have any other comments or questions from the board?
None.
None? Okay, with that said, Carol Ann, would you like to start us with the findings of fact?
Number one, the addition should be located at the rear of the building, not on the front, and that is exactly what it is. Should be secondary, smaller and simpler than the original building. It is. Addition should be of a compatible design in keeping with the original building design. Roof shape, materials, color, and location of windows, doors, and cornice heights. That's all right. Is there another page? Oh, sorry. Addition should not imitate an earlier historic style or architectural period, which I don't believe it's going to, because apparently there wasn't a covering there before.
Right.
The recommended approach is for additions to reflect characteristics of the current period in design, but compatible with the original building, which the drawings show to me. To avoid extensive removal, damage, or loss of historic materials, additions should keep the exterior walls of the original building as intact as possible, and use the existing door and window openings, yes, which you are doing for connecting the addition to the building.
Great. Sandy?
I have a question at this point.
Well, I mean, if you have a question.
I just
go
have a
ahead.
question. When you see it from the front,
Yes, ma'am.
the fence there is, you're not really gonna see anything even in the side of the roof. Are you coming down from the front?
On the one that
On the
goes from
east
the
side.
south to the north over the concrete patio, you won't see any of that at
Just the
all.
one that comes to the
But
side?
the one that goes from the west to the east, you'll see
an alley,
that.
isn't it?
It's kind of a shed roof
Shed.
look.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
an alley.
Two alleys. There's two alleys, right? North-south and
Yeah,
east-west,
there-
yeah.
right. There's a
Yeah.
north-south border, and then that runs from Main Street to First Street.
Yeah.
And then the border behind our house, the alley behind our house runs from Craigmont all the way over
Yeah.
everything, so.
Yep.
I concur with Carol Ann's
Okay.
finding of fact.
Owen?
I agree for the same reasons.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons.
And I also agree for the same reasons. I think it's going to be a nice addition to your already lovely home.
Thank you.
With that said, to make sure you've got all the appropriate permits in place, your COA will be in the mail.
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean,
I'm ready to wrap that up.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll ask for a motion then.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Linda and Kevin Malloy to add the roof over the existing rear patios at 816 West Second Street.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Tom Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carol Ann Rogers,
approve,
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much for
your
coming.
time
And you
and
will have your,
consideration, and
you'll have your COA in the mail.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you,
for all
guys.
your help.
Okay, our next application is Lucy Totillo.
Oh, she's not here.
I would recommend pushing her application to the end. I've reached out to see if she's in the representation.
Okay, great.
She's what?
Thank you.
See if she's in the.
So we'll go ahead and put her towards the end of the applications, and hopefully she'll have representation here by the end of the meeting. With that said, then we can go on to Chad Gray. Hi, Chad.
Chad Gray, 1000 East Dugan Hollow Road, Madison.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This structure is a circa 1840 contributing federal/Italianate zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to construct a 20-foot awning extending the rear roof that will be attached to the existing rear structure of the home. These are photos of the existing rear structure of the home. The site plan. A drawing of the proposed roof structure. Side view of the same. And an inspiration photo of one that would be similarly situated on the rear of a home. And that is all I have.
Great. Chad, do you have anything you'd like to add to this application?
No, that's it.
Okay.
It's, yeah, just a 20 by 16. It's, the house is 16 wide, so it's gonna carry the same pitch as the roof that the Camelback carried out. And it's gonna be similar to that. Concrete patio. Pillars will look similar to this as well, all wood construction, shingle roof.
Now remind me, does the roof line change from the old portion that you kept to the new portion in the front?
It's the same.
It's the same all the way
roof line
back.
all the way through. We just carried the shotgun all the way through. The addition, well, the front half that was taken out
Right.
had a different pitch to it, but it kind of slumped over to the other side. The first picture looked like
Yeah.
how it was anyhow. It's changed a little bit since then.
So in essence, what you're saying, kind of, it's just one big long shotgun
It's one big long shotgun
with porch on the back.
with the porch on the back. Yeah, the last 20 feet's gonna
That
be,
seems pretty cut
it's
and
just gonna be one long shotgun. It is right now, we're just adding 20 feet to it.
Yeah.
There'll be 2 posts on each side and the span there.
Any other questions,
dry. No?
comments? Any comments from the public? Okay, with that said, Sandy, would you like to start us with the findings of fact?
New construction, I think, this is additions to the rear of the buildings, this is like the whole building. It's mostly has to do with its scale, design, and placement is all, seems like it meets that condition. It should be compatible with roof shape, material, color, location. I think we're in conformance with those. I don't think that's an issue when we're talking about a plan on the continuing roof. Number 4, 5, again, I think we're in compliance with all of them. I mean, those that are applicable.
Right. Owen?
I agree.
Mike,
I agree for the same reasons.
Carol Ann?
I agree.
Great. Then I'll ask for a motion.
I'd like to make the motion, please. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Chad Gray at 124 East Street to construct a 20-foot awning extending rear roof that will be attached to the existing rear structure of the home.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Brooke?
Mike Pittman,
Approve?
Carol Ann Rogers,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
and Thomas Stark.
And I also approve. Thank you for the job that you're doing down there. It's going to be a huge improvement. It's been nice to watch the progress, with the front coming off, and I'm anxious to see this, the back portion also develop now too. So you'll get your COA in the mail, and like we've said, all night long, make sure you have all your work permits in place before you start the work.
Will do.
And thanks
Greatly
for coming.
appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. Our next applicant, Paul and Teresa Walters.
The address is 618 East Second Street.
And can you state your name?
Paul and Teresa Walters.
Okay, thank you.
Oops.
I apologize, I do have that incorrect on the top of the screen,
We
but
can
it is
move the house.
618. What's that?
We can move the house.
I know, right? So this home is a circa 1840, contributing is a federal/Italianate zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to build a one-car garage on the back of the property to be 15 by 20, siding with LP Smart siding, a shingle roof, period appropriate one side door, and one window. You can see pictures of the existing concrete slab that is there now at the rear of the home. Drawing on the left showing where the carport garage will go. On the right showing setbacks as well. This photo, another showing setbacks. Site plan. And this would be a drawing of what the open end of the carport would look like. That's not there, sorry. That one.
Nope.
No? I apologize, let me pull that up.
Is this the one? If she's checking.
I have them pulled up. I apologize.
Brooke, are you looking for the rendition of what the garage would look like?
Yes.
Okay.
I have it pulled up, I'm just scrolling through the pictures right now. Okay, so let me get this minimized so I can get that pulled up.
Pretty picture.
There it is.
That's it.
Sorry about that, guys. But that would be the proposed garage. And here are the elevations. And that is all I have.
Great, thanks.
Just where that is
Yes.
positioned with
Would you like the
the
site plan?
existing garage. There isn't an existing garage.
No, there's
No, there's not.
It's just part of that.
It's a concrete pad, if I
It's a
remember,
concrete
yeah.
pad.
Yeah, we did a lot of maintenance work to that as well, all concrete, new concrete.
Yeah,
We've had the footers poured for the
But I thought there
garage.
was a building there that said,
It said existing garage, or unless
There
we're
was
looking
no
at the wrong.
There's no existing garage. There's an existing concrete pad. I can go back to those photos
yeah, I
if
just,
you'd like.
because I just wanted to see how that was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's confusing me too. Existing garage.
That's not.
Here, there's no existing garage.
So that's just part of the house that I'm
That's
seeing
the-
there, to
Yes,
the
that's
right of
correct,
that.
yes.
Okay,
And if you look to the right there, where you see the caution tape going across, there was a gas line that ran through there, so we cannot put the garage on that particular spot. So that's why you see the pitch right there, and Mark and Jane's house is to our right. So you see there's gonna be a little angle of concrete there, so that's why we're putting a lean-to section of the garage there. So there's about a 5-foot section, so.
okay. If I remember, wasn't there like a gigantic tree in that back area of that? No?
The trees were in the front section of that, and then, but in the back, there was nothing there.
Okay.
per se. When we purchased it, no.
Yeah,
But right where you see the square, that's where the garage is gonna go. We had
Yep.
concrete poured all the way up to the front porch, to the back porch area there. So that's all gonna be fresh concrete.
okay, great, thank you. Anything else you want to add to this particular application?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any questions from the board? Look like the materials and everything that you're using are appropriate. The design of the garage, I think, fits in very nicely with the neighborhood. So why don't we go ahead and, if there are no comments or questions from the public, I think we've got, one or two, three people here left. Let's go ahead and then start with findings of the fact. And Owen, would you start us off with that?
Okay. Okay, new construction infill, all right, so, new buildings should be compatible with adjacent buildings in terms of height, in terms of materials, and setback. Setback here is it's kind of all defined by all the constraints on every side anyway. We got another
I
page,
did.
right?
It's coming up.
Okay, should be compatible with adjacent buildings in terms of scale, proportion, roof form. It is oriented toward the alley. New garages should be built to the rear of the dwelling, which is exactly where this one is proposed to be placed. So it would seem to me that this proposal is consistent with our guidelines.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons.
Carol Ann?
I agree for the same reasons.
Sandy?
I agree for the same reasons.
And I also agree for the same reasons. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District find for Paul and Teresa Walters at 618 East Second Street. Notice I'm putting name and address in there now. Find, we approve their application for a garage and overhang. I believe it was a carport, correct?
It's gonna be like a little, for a golf cart.
Yeah, for a small overhang at their home as submitted.
Great. Carol Ann?
I agree.
No, we need a
What, we
second.
need a second.
Oh, you need a
Oh,
second.
we need a second, yeah, sorry.
I second.
Tom Stark,
I approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carolyn Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Whitney.
Approve.
Your COA will be in the mail, and you can go ahead and get started. Make sure you've got, all the work permits in place before you start the work.
All right.
Thank you.
For the board. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Good to see you all again.
Okay, we're back to Mark Fraterna.
Yeah.
well, he was first. And then we moved him to
No,
the
no,
end.
no,
He's
no.
not first.
Oh, he
He's not
wasn't?
first. He's
Oh, I
last.
thought he was. Okay, I gotcha. Sorry about that.
But he is a familiar face.
How you doing, Mark?
Doing well. Mark Paterna, 716 West 3rd Street.
Great.
This home is a circa 1890 contributing Queen Anne shotgun. It is zoned historic district residential. The COA request is to build a one-car garage on the back of the property, modifying the existing approved COA for the said garage to include changes in materials and structural construction. So it's actually just materials we are looking at tonight. This would be a picture of the lot prior to beginning work. As stated, he did receive a previous COA and has filed for building permits and all of that. This is what it looked like before he started. This was the house prior to the rehab of the home. The house after the rehab was complete. This is the current state of what the rear yard looks like where the garage will go. Images from the rear of Presbyterian. This next slide is showing some of the construction detailing for the proposed roofing material. This shows prior approvals that for the same type of roofing material at 322 West 2nd or West 3rd Street and 1214 West Main, as well as others. And you have received all of these in your packets as well. These would be images of some of the final finishing look of the same type of roofing material. Another modification he is asking for is one 32 by 48-inch window on each gable end. Those windows will be aluminum clad wood in black to match the home. They are Anderson E-Series. The original COA was approved with a 412 pitch. So that was a typographical error. The house pitch is a 912 and he would like to match that house pitch. He would also like to add a double wood carriage door. One 9x9 for a car, one 4x9 for a golf cart, as opposed to the original fiberglass or aluminum door that was approved. And he did note that the precise look may vary due to custom fabrication, but that photo would be an inspiration photo of what ideally he would like to have.
Without the windows, because Brooke educated me that the appropriate carriage doors of the time would not have the glass windows, but we didn't have time to update the photo in the presentation.
And these are some photos of the adjacent buildings. He did note that it is low visibility for this structure as it's not located on a main thoroughfare, cannot be seen from 3rd Street or Presbyterian. These are some more detailings for box batten. Exposed fastener detailing as well.
Brooke, while we're there, on that particular, which one of those are you planning to use?
Well, we're actually, so what really the issue that we're running into is a structural concern of the standing metal seam requiring a 2-foot spacing on our, basically our rafters that we'll be building. And these are some variations of exposed fasteners, and really our only ask is we have one that can support a typical 4-foot span. My personal favorite's the top left because its rib spacing is similar to the box batten, which is a longer spacing, somewhere between 12 and 16 inches generally, and also the rib height is more like 3/4 of an inch, which closer matches the standing seam. Really, the only difference here is the exposed fasteners as opposed to being hidden on the standing seam.
So the one that says 5V dash crimp, that's the one you're saying?
Yes, these are actually
Okay.
brands from MS Metals, which Brooke directed us to. They're a supplier that Benders uses. We would use anything that the board would like us to use, as long as we can fit it into our new post-frame style construction. And I pointed at the bottom right, a lot of times when I've seen prior board meetings is they ask, is it a barn metal roof? And I think typically, when I think of that, is the shorter corrugated style on the bottom right, which we would not plan on using. That's, is more of a, what I would call a barn roof, and they have newer, more appropriate materials,
Yeah.
available now.
Great. Or can you proceed with the presentation, or is this it?
No, I'll
Okay.
keep going. So these are some different types of the metal materials as well. This would be your true standing seam. And this slide compares hidden fastener versus exposed fastener. Would you like me to cover these, or have you read those in your packets?
I've read them. Has everybody else
I
read them?
have read them.
We're good.
Other properties with exposed fastener roofing.
Does the tack factory have exposed fasteners?
Yep, all over.
Yes.
They're the concealed exposed fasteners, so if you go back to that image two, that's the brand that they have.
So they're concealed exposed.
Yeah,
Like a
they have
contradiction.
actual fasteners, but they are they're
They're
hidden.
inside the crimp.
Yeah.
And Mr. Paterno had also submitted that the existing COA granted back in 2021. Since that time, he's encountered some unforeseen issues with structural planning, and in working with the building inspectors, both the former and the current, he is needing to make these modifications. The existing COA was approved with hardy board siding, dimensional shingles, and all of that. However, because of some of the structural plans that he has changed along with the building inspector, he's been working very closely with him. He is now requesting this style roof because of the structural constraints and the weight that either a shingle or a standing seam roof requires the structural support for. So he is asking for that. The hardy board has no impact and can remain. And then he also wanted to note to the board that his preference was for the shingle roof. However, again, because of the structural constraints and the weight load, he is requesting the new materials. And that if not approved, would put the project in jeopardy and pose a financial hardship for him as well. And he does want to note that the existing landscape has been excavated and prepped, and so that failure to do this project would be a more unsightly result than approval of the new proposed garage. That is all I have.
Great. Mark, do you have anything else that you would like to go ahead and add to this application?
No, I have more supporting documentation if the board requires any further review, but
Okay.
not at this time unless you need more information.
No, I think we've got plenty. At this point, do we have any questions or clarifications the board would like to ask?
Yeah, which roof are you asking for? I'm confused.
My personal preference is the top left one. But really what we would look for is probably one that has anywhere from that 12 to 16 inch spacing on the rib and a rib height of, greater than ½ inch. I'm trying to stay away from brand names because we ran into that issue. Nicole actually, thank goodness you approved aluminum clad wood by name and not Quaker versus Anderson, because just like the first applicant today that wanted the Quaker, those are a better value. But at the time, they were back ordered 8 months. So luckily the approval was based on more material type than brand. So again, these are all specific brand names from MS Metals, but I think if we could just get something that, my preference again is to look like the standing seam, which is 12 to 16 inches on the spacing, a higher rib height, and as long as it can accommodate that 4 foot spacing on center, and not have that dead load weight that traditional standing seam requires.
It's the weight that you're concerned about on
Yes.
the, yeah.
I guess the board's position, forgive me for jumping in here, but, we don't pick your roof. You pick your roof. You have to tell us what you want. I mean, we
Well-
can't,
Yes, the top left.
the top left
Okay.
is what you
Okay,
want.
but it's in conformance, right? The top left one?
So exposed fastener metal roofs typically have not been considered in conformance with the guidelines. The guidelines do not support that. That would be the board's decision, as they are guidelines,
Oh,
to interpret those.
I understand now. I have
Okay,
no
so-
problem with that. I
So,
think it's
so
pretty.
that is an exposed fastener.
Yes.
Nicole, the one you mentioned that's on the Attack Factory, is that up on this sheet? Just out of curiosity?
But there's other examples that
Yeah,
are
so
already
they
approved.
installed this specific name brand. It's very similar to that top left one that Mark mentioned. There's a variety of different brands that carry the same thing. My recommendation to the board is they want to approve that to just be specific metal with the ranges that he's asking for between the ribs with a certain rib height and not mention brand name.
Okay.
Oh, exactly.
And typically, a lot of these designs would have exposed fasteners.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any
they're
other-
not exactly exposed fasteners because they're under the crimp. You're not gonna see them from the street, but they still classify them as exposed fasteners because they are exterior.
So one layer actually goes over and is
Yes, but
crimped?
it's not crimped over, so
Oh.
they still have to call them exposed fasteners.
Okay, okay,
But you can't see them,
Correct.
right.
so they're really not exposed fasteners.
Concealed fasteners.
Concealed,
In this case, we
exposed.
are talking about exposed fasteners, correct? We're not
Right.
talking about concealed exposed.
Mark, is that correct?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not an expert on metal roofs. I know that a lot of these would possibly require exposed fasteners. Now, I know like that 5V, there are ways that you can kind of eliminate as many that are exposed, but I can't say that there wouldn't be a small section that has some, because it's not the traditional crimp over type. I think that's the nature of their shape. I think you can kind of, like they were saying, hide it between the overlap, but without looking more into the actual user installation guide, I'm not sure if it's 100% hidden.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm hearing you correctly, you're asking for the upper left-hand SV crimp, 14 to 16 inches in width, with the exposed fastener. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm asking for exposed fastener because I believe that if we had to go to a different brand, the installation guide may have a different mechanism for putting them in. So like, I haven't, for example, called vendors to see if any of these are in stock. It's mostly, like I said, the 4-foot spacing, dead load requirement. And I think the majority of the installations I've seen would have your fasteners exposed in places. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pittman, I think you've probably had some experience installing these similar types of roofs. Do you have, do you remember what you'd put on your garage
Well,
on
believe it or not, I'm
Presbyterian?
not a roof installer, so I don't,
Sure,
I really don't pay it. Last roof I put on was standing seam,
okay.
so just so you know. But, you know, and I have used the exposed fasteners on a couple sets of garages. But again, the board takes each case individually,
Yes,
and we look at the entire situation. And while I appreciate you singling me out in the application, from my vantage point, there were good reasons why we used what we used. And I think you've got some good reasons too. But again, this board takes each application individually. It doesn't matter what's been done before.
absolutely, yep. And, no, I'd asked, and I'm not trying to be ambiguous with the request, but because it is structural in nature, we wanted to provide an assortment of materials that would satisfy the board. I mean, to me, it doesn't make much difference.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we need tonight, I think Mr. Pittman alluded to that, is we need to know if you do want to go with the 14 to 6-inch width exposed fastener, or one of those other versions, because we want to make sure when you walk out of here tonight, we know exactly what you're going to use.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a brand name, as we discussed earlier.
Yes, that's why we're requesting between 12 and 16 inches and greater than half-inch rib height.
I thought it was 14 to 16.
I believe it's 12 to 16. If you go back to the image 2, I think that was now the image 2 is an actual standing seam brand, and we're going to try to pick one that has, it's 12 to 16. That's going to be as
Okay.
probably close to what's preferable as possible.
And a half-inch rib.
Greater than half-inch, yes, because that rib height is actually 1 inch, but not necessarily all the brands are that tall. But
Okay.
most of them are going to be close to 3/4, I believe.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, with that said, Mike, are you up again, I believe? Findings of fact? Yeah.
Findings of fact, again, this is a new building. There was never a garage back there, was there?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
So that really doesn't apply. New buildings should be compatible with adjacent buildings, which is pretty easy to do back there on that street. New buildings should be compatible with adjacent buildings in terms of setback, which I think you are. Next page. New buildings should be compatible in terms of scale and proportions. I think there's several different types of buildings back there. New buildings should be compatible with adjacent in terms of roof form. What's your roof pitch on that you've got back there?
So the original house, the roof pitch, as far as I can tell, is 912.
Which were you asking on the garage or the?
The garage.
The garage, we would like it to match the house, which
Okay.
we believe is
912.
approximately 912.
Thank you.
Since you're, this new construction, it will be oriented to the major street, if you can call that street a major street behind you there. New garages should be built at the rear of the dwelling, which it is, or set well back from side elevations.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Carol Ann?
I'm sorry, what did you ask me? I was writing.
Do you agree with Mike?
I do agree
Findings
with
of
Mike.
fact, or? okay.
Absolutely.
Sandy?
I agree with finding the fact.
I agree
Okay,
with same reasons.
great. Do I have a motion then? What?
Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I agree for the same reasons. Yeah, sorry about that. And do I have a motion?
Bear with me here. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Mark Paterna at a 716 West Third for the proposed change in roofing materials to be between 12 and 16-inch width of exposed fastener metal roof greater than a half-inch rib height.
With exposed fasteners.
With exposed, oh, that's it, fasteners.
We also need to address the proposed 2 new windows and new garage door, the 2 new garage doors as well, overhead doors.
Okay.
Those were the aluminum clad windows. I can go back.
That he put on the eaves.
And the,
Yes,
and the wood
it's on the
door
gable
without the windows, correct?
Yes, and actually a correction, as opposed to overhead, we were considering a
Oh, that's right,
swing-out
carriage
carriage
door.
style, if it
Yeah.
seems more appropriate, but, yes, I believe, Brooke, were you telling me that the windows it would be more historically accurate not to have windows of the time period. Or to, I mean,
On the,
I haven't even found somebody that makes these in
garage?
town yet,
so on the carriage style doors, if you're wanting to replicate the same era as your home,
Yes, mhm.
then correct, the carriage doors would not have typically had windows at that era, during that era. However, that's a personal preference,
Okay.
since it is new construction.
Okay,
It also is a safety thing from keeping people peering in and seeing what you've got in your garage.
yeah, and I'm gonna have it insulated, so I don't need to lose any insulation in those window panes.
So Sandy, can you add, do you want her to add those two then to the,
If she would like to add that to her motion, she can modify her motion.
So, we are,
and the window
that we
sizes?
grant a certificate of appropriateness for the, 12 to 16 inch width exposed fastener metal roof, greater than half-inch rib length. The proposed, wooden garage door and windows.
Yes,
Any changes?
one aluminum clad wood window, Anderson E-Series on each gable end. of
One
the
aluminum clad window on each
Yes.
gable end.
Measuring, we should probably add the measurements in there
Yes.
as well.
32 by 48.
Yeah, 32 by 48.
And it's the same style that's on the home. I'm afraid I'm not a window expert. It was like what we were talking about earlier in
Right.
the 6/6s or whatnot, but hopefully just match the style that was on the home.
Which
wherever
was
that
in your
is.
proposal, I mean,
Yeah.
it was in. We good?
All set. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Tom Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve?
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carol Ann Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
And with that, you will get your COA in the mail and then get your work permits in place before you start the work, and you'll be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Stark. Appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
And Nicole, did you hear anything from Scott, Axline, or Lucy?
Staff has not heard anything from the two missing applicants, so pending them coming to the next meeting, we'll put them on the next agenda since they're incomplete applications.
Okay, thank you.
This is the second time Scott's hasn't been here though, right?
We will get a hold of him. Last time I talked with him about his PACE applications, he was still in Louisiana, so my guess is he forgot the meetings were monthly.
Yeah.
So we'll get a hold of him and see when he'll be back in town.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, I guess then we're ready for new and old business. Do you want to start with old business, Brooke?
That's fine. So, on the agenda for old business would be the design guideline update. We do need to, we have had several meetings at which we have discussed, the drafts, received public comments. It is now up to the board if you would like to vote to refer it to city council, the current draft, for adoption and approval.
I'd like to make the motion that we refer the current draft for the city council approval and adoption.
I second it.
Before you take a vote, just so the board's clear, so this will be a amendment to the historic district ordinance. There's a small little section under considerations to the board. Just tell you how often I've read your thing. But it refers to the current guidelines as design standards, residential, appendix A, design standards, commercial, appendix B. So we'll modify that to be just these design standards as appendix A.
Thank you.
And I would recommend just asking the public if they have any discussion before you vote.
Charlie? Charlie has no comment.
Charlie's the public.
So Mike, you made the motion. Do I have a second? Do we need to make it again?
You seconded. Yeah.
What?
You made a second.
Well, I know, but I thought you wanted us to add something onto it.
Before
You
Okay.
can still do it that way.
Okay.
Tom Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carolyn Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
Thank you, board. So this will go on council for the first reading at their next meeting. And then I believe it's the second meeting in September. The September 20th will be open for public comments.
Okay.
Invite your friends and your supporters.
Yeah, I'm out of town. Okay. New business. Unless there's more old business, Brooke? Okay.
Okay, I have some new business. I would like to suggest that the board consider requesting of the city building department that each month we receive notice of any contributing structure which has been declared unsafe or which is newly, the plan is for demolition, either one of those two things, so that we get that either in person from the buildings inspector, that would be preferable, or if not, at least know of newly designated buildings in danger of being demolished.
Staff have any comments on that?
No comments. It should be a pretty easy process to get you that list. Can't guarantee with the amount of volume that you'll get it. You'll be able to get it every month, but we will do our best to do it that way. We're in the process of putting a list together of the ones that we're looking at. Landon, I'm not gonna speak for him, but he's been pretty clear that he wants to try to save what he can, and not order the demolition of any buildings that can be saved. So we're working through that process with our legal team on how to move forward with it. So eventually that list will be public. They're still going through the process of notifying the owners who are on that list.
Okay, great. So that current list, is there a way that we could get a copy of that?
You can do a public records request through the office.
Okay.
As I mentioned, it's still going through legal review, so I'm not sure at what point we'll be able to release it, but all of our records are public, so you're welcome to
Yeah.
request it.
So then how will that work going forward monthly? I mean, will we need to request, through the staff to get that list, or will we be emailed?
Let me ask Devin what the best legal process is.
Okay,
My guess is for ease of staff, it will probably just come emailed,
great.
probably
Thank you.
from Brooke or or Landon I may have him do it directly. But one way or another, we'll try to get you the information you've asked for.
Okay. Thanks, Owen. Any other new business? Any public? I'm sorry, did you have something?
Just one
Sandy?
question, the new guidelines are going in for the first reading, second reading, third reading. We're gonna meet the grant deadlines if that all moves that way.
Yes.
Then, after those guidelines, were we not working on a different ordinance or
Well-
that's going to make
We'll let,
us more meaningful or not meaningful, I guess?
Yes, so our recommendation is yes, at that point to the board start looking at the ordinance. Brooke and I have already drafted some recommended revisions. Those have already gone through legal, and the mayor's looking at those now just to give his input. But my recommendation, when Josh gets back, is, since he's the chair, to set a subcommittee of 2 members to start reviewing those and then make changes as they would see fit, and then bring that before the full board.
okay. Timeline for that, roughly?
It's
End of
re-
year?
For the board to the full board to review it, that may be possible as long as those subcommittee members agree with all staff changes and don't fight amongst themselves.
Okay.
No, I think that may be.
No.
I think that may be a little bit of a tight turnaround. Definitely not possible to get it out to council and approved by the end of the year. I think that's too close. But definitely, I'd say first quarter next year.
Okay, thank you.
Because when you said a year, you're talking about, you meant by the end of this year, but you're
Yes.
saying the whole process theoretically could be done in 6 months.
Yeah, because between your all's review, I mean, typically you give 2 to 3 meetings to allow adequate public comment. Council takes three meetings to review it, as long as they don't have anything too controversial. I haven't seen anything tabled yet, but that ordinance has done that in the past, been tabled at the council level, so we always anticipate that. But I think Brooke and I both agree that the changes we've recommended, that the subcommittee will see first, I think that will help clear up some things. So hopefully, it shouldn't take too much back and forth. But ultimately, it is your all's ordinance, so we of course want public comments and your comments on that.
Great. Thanks, Nicole.
Of course.
Do we have any public questions, comments? Okay. Thank you for staying for the entire meeting. I'll ask for then a motion. Oh, staff report, I'm sorry. I am trying.
I'll be fast.
That
All right,
cold
so-
medicine.
Our August fast track applications, we had Wayne and Elise Detmer at 104 East Third Street to replace an existing modern standing seam roof with an asphalt shingle roof to more closely align to the historic 1886 roof material as evidenced on the Sanborn map of same year. High Sign Company at 209 West Main Street to install one hanging sign 36 by 48 by 1/4 inch made of polymetal with vinyl graphics, one vinyl window decal of business logo, 27.5 inch by 45.5 inch. Lynn and Michelle Pennington at 227 West Main to install a 4x4 foot wooden hanging sign at right angle to the building and one vinyl window sign at 38 by 23 inches. Catherine Burris at 410 West 2nd Street to replace existing rear wooden privacy fence with a new 6-foot tall privacy fence in the same location. The design changed, that's why it didn't necessitate staff approval on that. Sandra Bailey at 736 West 3rd Street to install wooden louvered shutters on the windows. And then the August 2021 COA review, Jim Pruitt at 310 Jefferson Street received a denied COA for vinyl windows, and instead was asked to repair the current wood windows or install aluminum clad. He did not replace the windows. He is in the process or already has completed repair of existing windows. John and Lisa Gray at 736 West Main Street received approval to build a roof over the patio structure and add a pony wall. That has been done. Sorry, I did not notate the last name. I will pull that up. Ferris, I believe. At 208 Ferry Street to install an aluminum carport. That has been done. Brian Martin and Judy Kaler at 613 Mulberry Street to build a capitol above the door. As of early last week, that had not been started. That is supposed to be started tomorrow, which is days before the deadline. So they are, but I do want to notate it was not started as of last week. And then I know some of the members had asked for just an update on some of the current and ongoing violations. So to talk about those, we have 1115 West Main Street, owned by Patrick Taverneau. It was an unapproved removal of the historic front porch. 2 letters have been sent. I've received no response. I do understand that there's some discussions going on with him about that. So we also have 123 Mill Street and 701 West First Street, Lanthir Winery with Tammy Hagemeyer and Chris Lanthir for unapproved installation of storage structures and windows, non-conforming retaining wall structure, which does not conform to the COA issued in November 2021. 3 letters were sent by staff with no response. The city attorney did send a letter on August 19th. So, you know, obviously we have to wait for a response, appropriate response time on that. And it will go through that process. 708 East Second Street, owned by John Heights. Non-conforming windows installed. He received a COA for aluminum clad wood windows. Vinyl windows were installed instead. I did speak with him. He has said he will file an application to amend the COA. And it should be on next month's agenda. 323 East Main Street, Van and Trevor Crafton, unapproved installation of aluminum clad replacement windows. They also have indicated that they will file an application for a COA as well. 1209 West Main Street, owned by Jerry and Bonnie Owens, construction of a non-conforming accessory building. The constructed building did not match the COA or the building plan submitted. Obviously, we're concerned with the COA here. A letter was sent, and the board did refer that to the city attorney and building inspector. So they are both reviewing that. 1004 Park Avenue, Madison Pilgrim Holiness Church. Unapproved removal of historic chimneys. It was a violation of a denied COA to do so. Letters have been sent. The city attorney did send a letter as well. And the city is still in talks and negotiations with representatives of that church to seek a remedy for that. So that is all I have.
Great. Thanks, Brooke.
You've been busy.
Any questions or comments for Brooke? Okay, then I think we're ready to ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Great. Second?
Second.
I don't think we need to vote.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, we need to, we're out of here.
You write there, misspell anything?
Scott, excellent. Save Lucy and Scott.